All right. How's the market? That's a, well, 1 second here. Sorry about that. Okay. How's the market? So that's a question that I get asked all the time when I run into people. So I thought, hey, let's just, as we're going into the new year, a new selling season is going to start ramping up. Let's answer that question on here. How's the market? And I encourage you to come talk to me about that. That's great. Don't take this as I don't want you to talk. I mean, every time, anywhere I go, people are asking me, how's the market? Or they're saying, hey, did you hear about that new NAR lawsuit? What's the deal with that? Or, is now the best time to buy, or is now the best time to sell? All these questions. So I'm going to give you some data. I'm going to answer that question with statistical data from 2023. I'm going to try not to give you too much of my opinion, but if you do hear me say anything that's not just a factual number, then just keep in mind these are my opinions, guys. So 2023, everybody thought that we would have a big market crash because, as you know, in 2020 to 2021, 2022, we had this big spike up, right? Housing prices increased like 10% a year. The same deal with your milk and your eggs. Everything, inflation, right? Everything that costs money increased in price during that time. So if you bought a house in 2019, 3 years later, you just gained a ton of value in that house, and it's worth a lot more than you paid for it, probably, if you paid fair market value back then. Okay. So everybody thought, hey, if I bought a house in 2022 or during that time, 2023, stuff's going to come down, and now my house isn't going to be worth what I paid for it. Good news, that's not true. Housing prices, here's like the quick summary or conclusion. I'll say that up front in case you want to skip the rest of the video. Housing prices, home values have not decreased. They have continued to increase. And I'm going to go over numbers and you'll see why. So we're going to start. I'm going to go over the numbers for the entire MLS. This goes from Danville over to Decatur, down to Effingham. So then you have, your Mattoon, Charleston, Mattoon, Shelbyville. You have all those areas in there. Big MLS. And housing prices, and I'm just going to read it here. The average sales price increased by 3.2%. So I think that's a lot less than 10%, when you look at that big area. But it's very interesting because as soon as I say this, I'm going to dive into just a couple towns where I am selling real estate and I'm very familiar with the market and give you those numbers. And I think you'll find that super interesting, especially if you live in one of those towns. So the supply and demand, right? If the housing prices increased, then there's a good chance, it kind of makes sense. Maybe one of the reasons is the number of closed sales decreased. So this is the whole MLS. In 2022, we had 3,949 closed transactions. And in 2023, we had 3,514. So, roughly 430 fewer transactions. So there were fewer houses to pick from for buyers. So the buyers ended up, paying even more. And the housing prices increased 3%, which may not seem like a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but that means your house probably did not decrease in value, just from the market alone. So yeah, that's it. Let's recap one more thing, and that's maybe mortgage rates. So one reason why we think, well, why were there fewer houses closed in 2023? And one reason we think is because mortgage rates increased. So mortgage rates, we saw 8% in some cases. So if you look at the numbers and what your monthly payment's going to be on if we had a 6% interest rate versus what your monthly payment would be if you had an 8% interest rate, you're going to pay a lot more per month for if you're buying a $200,000 house, your payment's going to be a lot more with 8%. And it affects the affordability of housing. So it affects what the buyers out there can afford. And so it affects the dollar of house that they can afford. So you have a lot of buyers kind of jumped out and they're like, I'm out. I'm not paying these high interest rates. So interestingly, now interest rates are coming down, and economists say that we're going to see as low as probably around like 6% or something again by the end of the year. Yeah, you can draw your own conclusions from that. So let's jump real quick, and I'm going to end this with the individual towns. Or cities. I'm going to start with Mattoon because that's what town my home address is. And our main office is in Mattoon. So Mattoon did something very interesting. In 2023, the average sales price went up 12%. That's insane. So the average home price in Mattoon in 2022 was $114,000, and now in 2023 it's $127,000 or almost $128,000. The average home price, sales price. So 12% increase. And probably why that was is because there was not much available. I mean, I remember people in the office coming in and going, man, I just pulled a list of what all's for sale, and there is only 12 listings for sale in the entire Mattoon city right now, and so therefore I think that probably drove those prices up. Even with high interest rates, it's supply and demand. But all the numbers, in 2022, there was 306 closed sales. In 2023, there were 268. So it went from 306 to 268. I mean, that's a decent number of sales to say, yeah, that's probably good data. So it's actually 12% also. So the number of sales of homes went down 12%. And then the value of those homes went up 12%. So it's an interesting statistic to me. So what's it going to do? We kind of think that Mattoon homes were maybe less valuable than surrounding areas for a time. And so maybe Mattoon is just playing catch up now. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things going on in Mattoon. We got this Emerald Acres coming. There's a lot of different things in Mattoon, and it seems like the home values are increasing. So let's look at Sullivan. That's another market I'm very familiar with and do a lot of business in. Sullivan was also insane, although the number of sales is not like this big 300 number. So the smaller the data set, the less accurate it probably is, because there could be an anomaly. Like there could be some house that sold for $1 million that we all know is not worth $1 million, and for whatever reason it still sold for that, and that affected this data set. So when you have a fewer numbers, so Sullivan had 85 in sales in 2022, and now the 2023 they had 57 sales. And that's still a good decent amount, but it's 32% less sales, and then their average sales price went up 18%, which is absolutely insane. But again, it's not like a huge data set, so there could be some numbers in there skewing things. That's why I like to look at like the whole MLS, and you get, those numbers are probably more accurate for everywhere. So anyway, but Sullivan, yeah, man, 18% increase in home values there. That's crazy. It went from $125,000 to $148,000 was the average cost of a home in Sullivan. Let's do Charleston. And number of closed sales went from 219 to 221. So there were actually more sales in Charleston. So more people sold their house in Charleston last year, 2023, that's interesting because that is not follow everywhere else or the trend in the market right now. So, but even with that, they still had an increase in home value, 2.6% increase. Not much, but what that still means is the Charleston home values have not gone down. So, again, we had this big 10%, big inflation, 2020, 2022, all in that time. And that hasn't lost. So again, if you bought a home in Charleston during that time and you think, oh, shoot, maybe I overpaid and the market's going to come down and now we're going to be, paying more than this house is worth. Nope, not the case yet. So, again, home values rose again in almost 3% in Charleston, which that actually follows the sort of the entire MLS data trend. So I've got numbers on Shelbyville, Danville. If you guys want to know these numbers for your city, your area, let me know. I'd love to have that conversation with you. And I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to data, when it comes to looking at home values, home prices. I think that's why it's probably easy for me to tell you what your house is going to sell for, because the data has the answers and I don't have to walk in and, oh, this feels like it's going to sell for this. No, I just look at data and it tells me what your house is going to sell for. For example, I just sold a house on DeWitt Avenue in Mattoon last month, and I predicted it would sell for $78,000. But the seller actually wanted to list it higher for $95,000 to start with, and I was okay with that as long as he was open to coming down to the price I said it would probably sell for eventually. And so ended up selling for $79,000. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and the data is data. It proves itself time and time again. I'd rather give you data and let you choose what your strategy is than you make a decision based off my gut feeling, although I do have those and I will share them. But yeah, that's it. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. And if you see me out in public, please ask me some real estate questions. Ask me about the market. Let's talk. If you want to know what your home value specifically is, I would love to come and run some numbers on your house, tour it real quick, 5 minutes, and then get back to you with that information. And that way, and you don't even have to be thinking about selling your house. I'd say if you think you might, or you're considering selling your house within the next year or two even, I am totally fine with swinging by your house and doing that as a free service to you, just so that maybe, on the off chance that you decide to sell your house, you'll sometimes that number helps you make that decision. You got a lot that goes into it. Well, I got to buy, or I'm going to do this, or you got a lot of moving pieces. So knowing what you could sell your house for now can help you make a decision one way or the other, a smart, educated decision. So feel free to hit me up for that. And this video is way longer than I wanted it to be, so I'm going to end it now, and we will see. Oh, by the way, it's a casual Tuesday. I am getting ready to go finish up a land listing that I have, do some drone shots. I'm waiting on the FSA office to get back to me on the details of some of the CRP programs on the land before I want to officially list it, because I want to know everything about it. Felt like I'd tell you why it was Casual Tuesday, guys. All right, I will see you later.